Hey guys, what's up? It's Charlie here, and today we're going to be looking at 10 stupid ways schools try to save money. We all know that school budgets are never high enough. This usually means the school has to scrap an extracurricular class or use less printer paper. But some schools try dumb, hilarious, and sometimes even kind of worrying techniques to try and pinch pennies. Get ready to be thankful you don't go to any of these schools. But first, subscribe to Top 10s and press the notification bell too. Coming in at number 10, we have nightclub. What kind of things did your elementary school have? Perhaps a jungle gym, art supplies, hopscotch? Well, if you went to Harambee Institute of Science and Technology, then you would have had a nightclub as well. And no, it's nothing to do with the gorilla, by the way. In the daytime, the school was a charter school in Philadelphia, which taught students from kindergarten to 8th grade. But when the school bell rang and the kids had left, this place turned into a nightclub. The school called the nightclub Club Damani, and it was surprisingly popular. I guess after a hard day of screaming kids, all the teachers had to do was hang around for a few hours and they could join the party. Now, it's usually illegal to serve shots of Ciroc at an elementary school. However, that isn't what got Club Damani shut down. You see, the school was built on the remains of an old bar which had a valid booze license. When they bought the building for the school, they oddly requested to transfer the liquor license as well, and by law the city had to oblige. However, in 2010 their license expired and the city did not have to renew a booze license for an elementary school. Would you go to a school nightclub, or is that just really not your style? Next up is repairs. It's a commonly known fact that schools in Detroit are very underfunded. Well, in 2014, the United States was outraged when Detroit teachers posted photos of their unsafe working conditions. They showed classrooms which had been turned upside down and mold on the walls. They also showed that no drinking fountains worked and toilets were unsafe without any toilet paper. The students' parents had complained about this before, but the school's budget had been cut, so they simply didn't have the money to fix all of these things. The photos were picked up by the national press, and teachers, students, and parents, and just about everyone else was very angry. Kids should have a safe and productive learning environment, but they sure weren't getting it in these classrooms. On the bright side, it was the wake-up call the government needed to realize the budget cuts had gone way too far. As a result of the images, the schools in Detroit did receive extra funding, but they're still far from perfect. Next up is student-teacher. When kids are in school, it can be a good thing to give them responsibilities. That's why we have class pets and hall monitors. However, it seems one school in Detroit took the whole they grew up so fast to a whole nother level. They didn't have much cash, and due to the classes being a massive size and having no support, one teacher left. The school couldn't find any qualified subs, so they decided to get a 13-year-old student to take over teaching 7th and 8th grade math. This wasn't just for a day though, or even a week, but a whole month. The crazy thing is, the 13-year-old teacher even had a teacher's aide, but somehow the school thought the kid was more qualified than the adult. Thanks to this, the kid's parents sued the school and Governor Rick Snyder. The lawsuit showed how Michigan state officials had turned Detroit public schools into slums. In some schools, even things like toilet paper were missing and kids' school books were unreadable due to overuse. It may have been a crazy and irresponsible idea to turn a child into a teacher, but it really shows how underfunded Detroit schools are. Props to the child teacher though, he should really give Governor Rick Snyder a big fat detention. Next up is cheating. It seems kind of unfair and counterproductive, but the better scores schools get on SAT tests, the more money they get. This seems backwards, as surely struggling schools would need more funding. But that's not the only thing wrong with this system, it also obviously encourages cheating. To try and increase funding in desperate times, some schools are starting to try and game the system. A few years back, schools in Atlanta and Baltimore were caught changing test scores of their students. They did this the good old-fashioned way by going through each kid's test answers, erasing the wrong ones, and filling in the correct option. It used to be the kids who would cheat on tests, but it seems that the teachers are now having to do it thanks to the budget cuts. It seems like the entire system here is backwards. Do you agree? And let me know in the comments if you've ever cheated on a school test, and be honest. And even better, let me know if you're a teacher who's cheated by changing a kid's school test. Next up is kids for hire. One thing that can sometimes cost schools a ton of cash is buying things for student athletes. They need equipment, transportation for away games, and uniforms. One school in Oregon figured they wouldn't be able to afford new uniforms for the wrestling team, so they came up with an idea. They launched a program called Rent a Wrestler. The school sent 14-year-old kids out to do people's gardening work and other odd jobs around the house. The school also posted Facebook ads saying they'll work for helmets. This made some parents mad, as their kids had gone from wrestlers to landscapers in a matter of minutes. And if you think selling off kids is bad, then what about a cow? That's right, another Oregon school had to sell a cow that someone had donated to them. It did raise $1,700 for their baseball team, but the team's mascot was a cow, so was it really worth it? Would you rather rent a child wrestler or buy a cow? Next up is bus. It's a staple of American life to be transported to school in a big yellow bus driven by the local oddball. School buses aren't exactly Uber X, but they do cost schools a lot of money. For example, California schools have to pay $3.5 million a year to run them, while the government only chips in $86,000. Because of this, some schools actually have begun charging money to ride school buses. In Golden, Colorado, public schools charge a hefty $150 a year to ride them. And in the San Francisco district, the fee is a ridiculous $600 just to sit on some sticky seats and look out of some licked windows. And in Philadelphia, rides are $225 each, which adds up to over $800 a year. At that rate, perhaps kids should just be getting Ubers into school. Some schools have even been cheaping out on the buses they use too. One small school decided they didn't need all that space, so traded in their standard bus for a mini version. Next thing you know, people will be living in school buses. Oh wait, they already are. What has the world come to? Next up is yesterday's lunch. We all know the best places to eat are airlines, hospitals, and schools. Just kidding, it's actually kind of a stereotype that school meals suck. Well, a few underfunded schools in the US aren't exactly proving people wrong. In 2015, something happened in Hawkins County School in Tennessee that will make people with even low food standards cry. They served up pork in 2015, which had been sitting in the freezer since 2009. That's right, the school waited a whopping 6 years to serve pork to students, meaning the pork had been at the school longer than some of the kids had. The lunch ladies told the school the meat was way past its best before date by more than half a decade, but they were told to cover it up with gravy and the kids wouldn't know the difference. Okay, I'm not saying kids have the taste palette of Gordon Ramsay, but come on. I'm not sure if lunch lady Doris from The Simpsons is working at these schools, but something has got to change here. The school was apparently very underfunded, and reordering more pork would have cost too much cash. But it seems all of those parents' lawsuits probably cost them more than all the pork in the world. Next up, we have ad. Nowadays, ads are everywhere. You see them online, on TV, on billboards, but the one place you don't see many ads is at school. Schools have a guaranteed child audience, so they're a great place for companies to win you over while you're young and get you into buying their stuff way into your adult life. For example, Cherry Creek schools had to sacrifice some bus space for advertising to make some extra money. Other schools had to put up large posters of company adverts on the sides of their buildings. And one day, students were confused to find that ads had been painted all over their lockers. So while you're grabbing your textbooks, be sure to drink Coca-Cola. Many parents were angry about this, as it seems like the schools are trying to monetize their kids and sell things to them. However, as we've already seen, schools gotta do what they gotta do to survive with the little cash they have. So get ready for your future kids to be taught somewhere that looks more like Times Square than a school. Next up is rent-a-school. You know how schools are only open for around 10 months in a year due to vacation and so on? Well, while the kids aren't using the school for learning, it's got some very valuable things in it. And you'd better believe that schools don't let their photocopiers, fax machines, and parking spaces go to waste over the vacation period. One school district in Texas makes tens of thousands of dollars a year by allowing local governments to use their copying and fax machines. They also make around $87,000 by renting out parking spots to local office workers. And football stadiums are often rented out to sporting companies, and in some cases even churches for outdoors events and more. So schools don't just rent out their own students for some extra cash, they also hire out their own land to anyone who will pay for it. These methods may sound a little unorthodox, but the school makes enough money to pay the salaries of 4 teachers with all these crafty money-making ideas. Next up is extortion. Extortion is something a mob boss might do, but it seems that in 2018, schools now have to behave like the mafia in order to survive. Schools now seem to be like Nelson Muntz, telling kids to suddenly cough up tons of cash. The Marani Unified School District in Arizona sent a note to parents demanding $250 per parent as they needed to raise $12,500. They said if they didn't pay up, they would punish their kids by forcing them to do 10 grinders plus 1 for every day their parents didn't cough up the cash. And another time, a kid who was poor and couldn't afford school lunches owed more than $25 in lunch fees. Thanks to this, the school stopped serving him lunch like the other kids, and instead he got a cruddy cheese sandwich. And another school in New Jersey told parents they collectively had to pay $100,000 for lunch fees. The parents either couldn't or wouldn't pay, so the school simply stopped feeding the kids altogether. This led to CPS getting involved, and now the school may be shut down. Hey, I guess you gotta make the moolah somehow, just try not to starve any kids in the process. These schools have done some pretty bad stuff, and at the time some parents actually wanted the schools to be shut down. Do you think that's a little bit extreme, or do you think these schools should really be closed for what they've done? I think things like advertising pizza on buses is okay, but extortion is probably not, to be honest. I'm not sure if those kids were going to Don Corleone High, but something is definitely wrong there. If you guys have any odd experiences of your schools trying to save money, then let me know in the comments below. My personal favorite was the school in Oregon which had to sell a cow. You know times are desperate when you have to sell off the school cow. Check out the poll in the top right corner to vote for the craziest method schools try to save money. And be sure to check out my second channel too. There'll be a link to my second channel on screen in a moment, so click it to check it out. But as always, thanks for watching. Check out some more videos on screen right now. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and if you haven't already, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to Top 10s.